1. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just stumbled upon. A 1970 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for a cool $12,000. Now I gotta be real with you guys. This isn't just any old T-Bird. We're talking about a piece of automotive history here. This beauty is part of the 5th production cycle, which ran from 67 to 71, and let me tell you, it was the biggest and most luxurious Thunderbird of its time. Picture this, a 4-door sedan with suicide doors and a Landau top, sharing its chassis with the Lincoln Continental Mark III. How's that for class? Under the hood, you've got a beastly 429 Thunderjet engine with a 4-barrel carb, pumping out a whopping 360 horses. Paired with a smooth C6 automatic transmission and dual exhaust, this bird is ready to soar. Now here's the kicker. This baby has only 35,180 original miles on the odometer. That's practically nothing for a car of this vintage. The seller says it's in good condition, and with that low mileage, I'm inclined to believe them. The exterior is a stunning burgundy fire, complete with matching disc hubcaps and a black lizard print vinyl Landau top. Talk about turning heads. Here's the deal though. The owner needs to sell ASAP for wedding and moving costs. It's a cash-only deal, no trades. But get this, fully restored Haggerty values this beauty at $24,800. That's some serious potential right there. Look, I know $12,000 isn't pocket change, but for a piece of American automotive history in good condition with such low mileage, that's a steal in my book. Plus, it's an extremely rare find. You don't see these birds flying around every day. So, if you're in the market for a classic ride that'll make you feel like automotive royalty, this 1970 Thunderbird might just be your ticket. Just remember, cash talks, and this bird's ready to fly to a new nest. 2. We're diving into a real gem, a 1973 Plymouth Duster that's currently up for grabs at $13,500. Let me tell you, this isn't your average muscle car find. First off, we're looking at a numbers-matching 340 Magnum V8 under the hood. The seller says it fires up without a hitch. No leaks, no smoke. That's music to any gearhead's ears. Paired with a Hurst 4-speed manual transmission that's reportedly shifting smooth as butter, this Duster is promising one heck of a driving experience. Now let's talk looks. This beauty is rocking its original Hugger orange paint with black stripes. It's a classic muscle car color combo that never goes out of style. But here's the kicker. The seller claims there's zero rust or bondo. Apparently, this Duster went through a full restoration about 5 years ago. If that's true, we're talking about a seriously well-preserved piece of American muscle car history. The odometer shows a mere 13,000 miles. Now, whether that's original or post-restoration isn't clear, but either way, it suggests this Duster hasn't seen much road time recently. The seller mentions they're getting on in years and just don't drive it anymore. It's always a bit sad to see an enthusiast part with their ride, but it means an opportunity for one of you to snag this beauty. Now, I always aim to be straight with you folks. The seller describes the condition as excellent, and from what they're saying, it sounds like a really clean example. However, without seeing it in person, it's hard to verify all the claims. If you're seriously interested, I'd recommend giving it a thorough once-over. At $13,500, for a restored numbers-matching Duster with the desirable 340 4-speed combo, you could be looking at a pretty solid deal here. These cars have a strong following, and good examples are getting harder to find. Remember, it's got a clean California title, and the seller's only entertaining serious inquiries. So if you're in the market for a slice of Mopar muscle that's ready to rumble, this 73 Duster might just be your ticket to muscle car nirvana. 3. We've got a 1966 Ford Mustang Coupe on our hands, and it's priced to move at $12,000. Now, let me break this down for you, because this isn't your average 66 pony car. First off, we're looking at a car that's had some serious work done under the hood. The seller claims there's a new motor in there, and they've gone all out with Summit Racing roller rockers and aluminum heads. We're talking a fresh carb, headers, manifold, and exhaust, apparently to the tune of $10,000. That's a hefty investment in performance, folks. The drivetrain hasn't been neglected either. There's a new transmission with a 2000 stall converter and a Ford 9-inch rear end, which is the holy grail for many muscle car enthusiasts. The seller mentions new brakes and front-end work too, so it seems like the running gear has been given a thorough going over. Now here's where it gets interesting. The seller claims it's only done about 100 miles since all this work was completed. They're promising it's very fast, which given all the upgrades, isn't hard to believe. Aesthetically, we're told it's sporting newer paint, though no specifics on color or condition are provided. The body style is listed as a coupe, which isn't as sought after as the fastback, but still has its charm. Here's where I need to be straight with you though. While all these upgrades sound great on paper, we don't have any details on the quality of work or who performed it. It's always wise to approach heavily modified classic cars with a bit of caution. A professional inspection wouldn't be a bad idea if you're serious about this Mustang. The seller is pretty confident in their pricing, claiming you can steal it at this price. Given the amount of money allegedly poured into the drivetrain, $12,000 could indeed be a bargain if everything checks out. Remember folks, this is a modified classic, not a numbers-matching restoration. It's for someone who wants a hot rod Mustang rather than a pristine original. If you're in the market for a '66 Mustang with some serious get up and go, and you're comfortable with a car that's been significantly upgraded, this could be your ticket to tire-smoking glory. 4. We're diving into a real treat, a 1966 Ford Galaxy 500 that's just hit the Craigslist market for $15,000. Now let me tell you, this isn't your run-of-the-mill classic. We're talking about a genuine barn find here, folks. This Galaxy 500 is sporting its original 352 FE big block V8 engine, which is music to the ears of any Ford fanatic. The seller claims it's an all-original survivor car, purchased straight from the original owner's estate. That's the kind of provenance that makes us car nuts weak in the knees. Now let's talk condition. The interior is described as a perfect 10 out of 10. For a car that's over half a century old, that's pretty darn impressive. It's a 4-door model, which might not be as sought after as the 2-door, but it's practical. The seller mentions they've added 2 sets of seatbelts, so it's ready for the whole family to cruise in vintage style. The exterior is rated at 8 out of 10, which is still pretty solid for a car of this age. It's wearing a green paint job, which was a popular color back in the day. The odometer shows 89,000 miles, which seems believable for a car of this vintage. Here's the kicker, it runs and drives. For a barn find, that's not always a given, so it's a big plus. The transmission is automatic, making it an easy cruiser for Sunday drives. Now, I always aim to be straight with you folks. While this Galaxy sounds like a gem, remember that barn finds often need some TLC to get them back to their former glory. The seller doesn't mention any specific issues, but with a car this old, you'll want to give it a thorough inspection before handing over your hard-earned cash. At $15,000, it's not the cheapest Galaxy out there, but for an all-original survivor in this condition, it could be a fair price. These big Ford cruisers are gaining appreciation in the classic car world, and finding one this original is getting harder every year. 5. We've got a real treat today. A 1985 Oldsmobile Cutlass that's turning heads at $14,500. This isn't your average 80s cruiser, folks. Let's start with the basics. We're looking at a black beauty with only 42,000 original miles on the clock. That's practically brand new for a car pushing 40. But here's where it gets interesting. Under the hood, there's a rebuilt 350 V8 paired with a freshly rebuilt transmission. Add in a new exhaust system, and you've got a Cutlass that's ready to rumble. Inside, it's pure 80s luxury. We're talking top-of-the-line leather interior, a moonroof, and all the factory options. This Cutlass was loaded when it rolled off the line, and it's still bringing the comfort today. Now here's a sweet bonus. The seller's throwing in 2 extra sets of wheels and tires. That's like getting a wardrobe change for your car. But wait, there's more. You're also getting a 24-month or 24,000-mile warranty on both the engine and transmission. That's some serious peace of mind for a classic ride. The seller claims it handles and performs great, which isn't hard to believe with all the work that's been done. They also mention there are too many new parts to list, suggesting this Cutlass has been well cared for. At $14,500, It's not the cheapest 85 Cutlass out there, but let's be real. You're getting a lot of car for your money. Low original miles, rebuilt drivetrain, warranty and all the options? That's a package deal that's hard to beat. These G-body Oldsmobiles are gaining traction in the classic car world, and finding one this clean with so many upgrades is getting tougher every year. If you're in the market for a slice of 80s American luxury with a bit of muscle under the hood, this Cutlass might just be your ticket to cruise night stardom. Remember, in the classic car game, condition is king, and this Cutlass seems to be wearing the crown pretty comfortably. So, if you're ready to turn some heads and relive the glory days of American automotive design, give this Olds a look. 6. We're diving into a real unique find, a 1962 Ford Ranchero that's up for grabs at $12,000. Now let me tell you, this isn't your average Ranchero, folks. First off, we're looking at a Ranchero with some interesting modifications. The sellers swapped in a 1965 Mustang running gear, including a 289 V8 engine paired with a C4 automatic transmission. That's a pretty sweet combo that should give this ute some decent get up and go. Now here's where it gets a bit tricky. The seller mentions they've installed a thumper cam, which is great for performance, but it's causing some issues. As it stands, the car needs to be scoped to run properly on the street. The good news is, the seller still has the old cam if you want to make it a daily driver again. The interior seems to be in decent shape, with everything reportedly working, including a retro AM/FM radio. That's a nice touch for cruising in vintage style. However, there are some unfinished projects here. The bed needs to be finished, but the seller has the paint ready to go. Something similar to rhino lining, which should make for a durable surface. One cool aspect is the chrome work. The grille and the trim around the bed have been chromed, which should give this Ranchero a bit more bling than your average example. Now I've got to be straight with you folks, this isn't a turnkey vehicle. The seller clearly states no drives at all but can here run. That means you're looking at a project car here. You'll need to bring a trailer if you're interested, and be prepared for some work to get it roadworthy. At $11,975 or $12,000 as listed in the title, it's not the cheapest Ranchero out there. But with the Mustang running gear and the custom touches, it could be a unique ride for the right buyer. Just remember, you're buying a project, not a finished product. 7. We're looking at a 1977 Lincoln Continental Mark V that's up for grabs at a surprisingly affordable $3,800. Now, let me give you the lowdown on this classic piece of American luxury. First off, we're dealing with a big, beautiful coupe here. The Mark V was the pinnacle of 70s automotive excess, and this one's wearing an eye-catching red paint job. The seller claims it's in good condition with no visible rust, which is a big plus for a car of this vintage. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and where you need to pay attention. This Continental isn't currently running. The seller says it needs a carburetor to get back on the road. That's not necessarily a deal breaker for you handy types out there, but it's definitely something to factor into your decision. Under the hood, you've got a big V8 engine, which is paired with an automatic transmission. When it's running right, these cars are smooth cruisers, perfect for eating up highway miles in style. The seller describes it as a great project, and that's probably the right way to look at this. It's not a turnkey classic, but it could be a fantastic starting point for someone looking to dive into the world of vintage luxury cars without breaking the bank. Interestingly, the seller is open to trades, specifically mentioning they'd consider a straight swap for a Cadillac from 1967 to 1984. That gives you an idea of what they value this Continental at. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. At $3,800, this is priced more like a project car than a ready-to-roll classic, and that's exactly what it is. You're going to need to invest some time, effort, and probably a bit more money to get this land yacht seaworthy again. But if you're up for the challenge, you could end up with a really impressive piece of 70s automotive history. Remember, these Mark V's are huge cars with equally huge presence. When they're in good shape, they turn heads wherever they go. So if you've got the skills, or know someone who does, to get that carburetor sorted out and give this Continental some TLC, you could be cruising in serious style for a relatively small initial investment. 8. We're diving into a real gem, a 1952 Ford Crestline Victoria that's up for grabs at $15,000. Let me tell you, this isn't your average 50s cruiser. First off, we're looking at a car that's undergone a body-up restoration, and the seller's got the receipts to prove it. That's music to any serious collector's ears. This Crestline Victoria is sporting a rebuilt flathead V8 engine, which is paired with a rebuilt 3-speed manual transmission. But here's a sweet bonus. It's got the optional overdrive, which is a great feature for modern driving. The interior has been completely redone from carpet to headliner. We're talking new seat upholstery, door panels, the works. They've even rewired the entire car front to back, which is a huge plus for reliability and safety. On the outside, this Ford's rolling on new wide white wall tires, giving it that perfect 50s look. The brakes have been completely overhauled with new lines and hoses, and there's a new fuel tank with fresh lines. The suspension is all new too, so this classic should ride as smooth as it looks. Speaking of looks, the Crestline's sporting a new base clear paint job, and most of the chrome is new with some restored stainless trim. That means this beauty should really shine at car shows, or just cruising down Main Street. Now, I always aim to be straight with you folks. At $15,000, this isn't the cheapest $52 Ford you'll find out there. But considering the extent of the restoration work that's been done, it could be a fair price for a turnkey classic. The seller says it runs and drives very nice, which isn't hard to believe given all the work that's been put into it. These early 50s Fords are gaining appreciation in the classic car world, and finding one that's been restored to this level is getting harder every year. The Crestline Victoria was a top-of-the-line model for Ford in '52, and this one seems to have been brought back to its former glory. So, if you're in the market for a slice of early 50s American automotive history that's ready to hit the road or the show circuit, this Crestline Victoria might just be your ticket. It's got style, it's got a flathead V8, and it's got a level of restoration that should let you enjoy it without worrying about what's going to break next. 9. We've got a 1975 Chevrolet Nova Coupe that's turning heads at $10,000 OBO. This isn't your average 70s compact, folks. Let's start with what's under the hood. We're looking at a 350 cubic inch V8, but it's got some tasty upgrades. There's a 4-barrel Holley carburetor sitting on top, which should help this Nova breathe a lot better than stock. Pair that with hooker headers and a dual Flowmaster exhaust running to the rear, and you've got a setup that should sound as mean as it performs. The seller's thrown in some practical upgrades too. There are front disc brakes, which is a nice safety improvement over the original drums. An aluminum radiator has been added to help keep things cool, which is always a good idea when you're beefing up the power. Aesthetically, we're dealing with a black paint job. When done right, a black Nova can look seriously menacing. The interior has reportedly been redone, though details are sparse on what exactly that entails. Now let's talk numbers. The odometer shows 61,125 miles, but as with any classic, take that with a grain of salt. It's got an automatic transmission, which might not be every muscle car fan's first choice, but it does make for easier cruising. Here's where I need to be straight with you. The seller's asking $10,000 OBO, which isn't cheap for a '75 Nova. But with all these upgrades, it could be a fair price if everything checks out. Just remember, it's being sold as is, so a thorough inspection is a must. This Nova could be a great weekend cruiser as is, or a solid foundation for a more serious build. It's got the right ingredients to be a fun project without starting from scratch. So, if you're in the market for a '70s muscle car with some modern touches, this Nova might be worth a look. Just be sure to do your due diligence, maybe bring along a mechanic buddy, and don't be afraid to negotiate. After all, that's what OBO is for. 10. We're diving into a real gem, a 1974 Plymouth Valiant that's up for grabs at a surprisingly affordable $5,700. Now let me tell you, this isn't your average '70s sedan. First off, we're looking at a car with only 41,190 miles on the clock. That's incredibly low for a vehicle pushing 50 years old. Under the hood, there's a 318 CI V8 engine that the seller says hums. That's a reliable power plant known for its longevity and smooth operation. The seller's not shy about singing this Valiant's praises, describing it as a beauty with an immaculate interior. They claim the upholstery is 100% original with no tears or holes, which is pretty impressive for a car of this vintage. The exterior is sporting a green paint job, which was a popular color back in the day. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The front suspension has recently been rebuilt from the frame up. We're talking new shocks, strut rods, tie rod ends, ball joints, bushings, the works. That's a significant investment that should make this Valiant drive like a much younger car. The factory AC has been upgraded to R134A, which is a nice touch for modern drivability. All the glass is reportedly in great shape, and all windows function properly, not always a given with classic cars. As a bonus, you're getting 2 sets of 1974 Plymouth hubcaps, the original Valiant set, and another from a '74 Satellite. The white wall tires aren't new, but are said to be in good shape. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. At $5,700, this seems like a lot of car for the money. The seller describes it as an absolute bargain, and if everything checks out, they might not be wrong. These Valiants are gaining appreciation in the classic car world, especially ones in this kind of condition. It's worth noting that the seller suggests it could be a prime candidate for full restoration or hot rodding. That implies it's not perfect, but it's a solid starting point for whatever direction you might want to take it. 11. We're looking at a real oddball, a 1979 Ford Fairmont that's been converted into a pickup truck. Yeah, you heard that right. This unique ride is up for grabs at $8,500, and let me tell you, it's not something you see every day. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. This isn't your standard Fairmont. Someone's taken the time to transform this compact car into a pickup, which is a pretty cool custom job if you ask me. The seller doesn't provide many details about the conversion, but it's definitely a conversation starter. Under the hood, we're looking at a 6-cylinder engine, which was a common option for the Fairmont. It's paired with an automatic transmission, making it an easy cruiser. The odometer shows 89,000 miles, which isn't too bad for a car of this vintage. The exterior is sporting a red paint job, and interestingly, the interior is red as well. That's a bold color choice that'll definitely turn some heads. Speaking of the interior, it's got an 8-track player. Talk about a blast from the past. One cool feature is the custom-made cover, which I'm assuming is for the pickup bed. That's a nice touch to protect whatever you're hauling. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. At $8,500, this isn't cheap for a '79 Fairmont. But remember, you're not just buying a Fairmont, you're buying a unique custom vehicle. The value here is in its novelty and the work that's gone into the conversion. The seller describes the condition as good and mentions that it has AC, which is a nice feature for a car of this age. However, they don't provide much detail about the mechanical condition or the quality of the pickup conversion. So, if you're in the market for something truly unique, this Fairmont pickup could be right up your alley. It's got the potential to be a real head-turner at car shows or just cruising around town. Just remember, with any custom vehicle like this, it's extra important to give it a thorough inspection before buying. 12. We're diving into a real piece of 70s American iron, a 1973 Pontiac Grand Prix that's up for grabs at $9,000, or $8,195 to be exact. Let me break this down for you because this isn't your average grocery getter. First off, we're looking at a second-owner car with about 138,000 miles on the clock. Now, that might seem high, but here's the kicker. The motor was rebuilt about 40,000 miles ago. And not just rebuilt, but upgraded with a mild cam. That's music to any gearhead's ears. Speaking of the engine, we're talking about a 400 cubic inch V8 with a 4-barrel carb. That's a potent combination that should give this Grand Prix some serious get up and go. It's paired with an automatic transmission, making it a smooth cruiser for those long highway trips. The seller's been putting some work into this beast. We're talking a newer radiator, power steering, brakes, and battery. That's a good sign that this car's been cared for. Now let's talk aesthetics. The car was repainted years ago, so it might not be showroom fresh, but it should still look pretty good from 20 feet away. The interior is described as pretty good, with a great headliner, great dash, and good seats. That's not too shabby for a car pushing 50 years old. But I've got to be straight with you folks. It's not all perfect. The seller mentions it could use a trunk pan and some weather stripping. That's something to factor into your decision if you're thinking about making an offer. Here's the good news though. The seller claims it runs and drives great. In fact, they say they'd drive it across the country tomorrow. That's a pretty bold statement and shows some real confidence in the car's condition. At $8,995, it's not the cheapest 73 Grand Prix out there, but with the rebuilt engine and recent work, it could be a fair price for a solid driver. Plus, the seller's open to trades for SUVs, so there might be some wiggle room there. So, if you're in the market for a classic piece of Pontiac muscle that's ready to hit the road, this Grand Prix might be worth a look. It's got style, it's got power, and it sounds like it's got some life left in it. Just remember to give it a thorough inspection if you're serious about making an offer. 13. We're diving into a real gem, a 1964 Mercury Monterey Breezeway that's up for grabs at $12,500 OBO. Let me tell you, this isn't your average 60s cruiser. First off, we're looking at a car that the seller describes as being in excellent condition. Now, that's a bold claim for a vehicle pushing 60 years old, but let's break it down. The heart of this beast is a completely rebuilt original V8 390 engine. That's a potent power plant, folks, and with only 3,000 miles since the rebuild, it should be just hitting its stride. One of the coolest features of this Monterey is the breezeway rear window. For those not in the know, that's an electric rear window that rolls down into the body, a unique Mercury feature that's sure to turn heads at car shows. The seller says it's fully functional, which is great news because these can sometimes be troublesome on older cars. Aesthetically, we're told this Monterey is sporting new paint and upholstery. That's a big plus, as it means you're getting a classic that should look sharp inside and out. The seller doesn't mention the color, but these Mercuries looked good in just about any hue. Here's another big selling point. It's a California car with no rust. For those of us in less forgiving climates, finding a rust-free classic can be like finding a needle in a haystack. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. At $12,500 OBO, this isn't the cheapest 64 Monterey you'll find out there. But considering the rebuilt engine, new paint and upholstery, and the apparently excellent condition, it could be a fair price for a turnkey classic. The OBO, or best offer part, suggests there might be some room for negotiation too. One thing to note, the seller specifies cash only, so be prepared if you're serious about making an offer. So if you're in the market for a slice of 60s American luxury that's ready to hit the road or the show circuit, this Mercury Monterey Breezeway might just be your ticket. It's got style, it's got power, and it's got that cool breezeway rear window that's sure to impress your friends. 14. We're diving into a real piece of automotive history, a 1951 Packard 200 that's up for grabs at $12,000. Now let me tell you, this isn't your average post-war cruiser. First off, we're looking at a Packard with the Ultramatic transmission. That was Packard's own automatic transmission, and it was pretty advanced for its time. Under the hood, you've got a straight 8-cylinder engine, 288 cubic inches of pure 1950s American iron. These engines were known for their smoothness and torque, perfect for effortless cruising. The seller claims this Packard is in excellent running and driving condition, and they're not shy about its quality, describing it as show quality. That's a bold statement, but if it's true, you could be looking at a real gem here. Now here's something interesting. The odometer shows just 18,000 miles. For a 70-year-old car, that's incredibly low. It could be original mileage if the car was barely driven and well preserved, or it might have rolled over once. Either way, it suggests this Packard hasn't seen a ton of road time. Packards from this era are known for their build quality and luxury features. The 200 was their entry-level model. But don't let that fool you. Even Packard's base models were a cut above most other cars of the time. At $12,000, this isn't the cheapest 51 Packard out there, but if it truly is in show quality condition, It could be a fair price. These cars have a strong following among collectors, and good examples are getting harder to find. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. The seller's description is pretty brief, so there's a lot we don't know. What's the condition of the body and paint? How's the interior? Has any restoration work been done? These are all questions you'd want to ask if you're seriously interested. So, if you're in the market for a classic piece of American luxury from the early 50s, this Packard 200 might be worth a look. It's got style, it's got that smooth straight-8 engine, and if it's as good as the seller claims, it could be ready for the show circuit or just some classy Sunday drives. 15. We're diving into a real gem, a 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle that's up for grabs at $12,500. Now, let me break this down for you because this isn't your average 67 Chevelle. First off, the seller's claiming this car is in excellent condition, and they've got some details to back it up. We're looking at a factory V8 automatic car. That's a desirable combo right there. It's sporting bucket seats, which adds a sporty touch to the interior. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The body is described as straight with no rust. That's music to any classic car enthusiast's ears. It's been epoxy primed, which is a great base for paint if you're looking to finish it in the original white or go for a new color. The seller mentions it has nice original rear quarters, which is a big plus as these are often rust-prone areas. The car's rolling on powder-coated 15-inch rally wheels with new tires. That's a classic look for these Chevelles, and the powder coating should keep them looking good for years to come. There's also a new rear bumper, which is a nice touch. Inside, we're told it has a red interior, which should pop nicely against the white exterior, if you decide to keep it original. All the window trim is present, and the tinted flat glass is said to be in good condition. That's not always a given with cars of this age. Under the car, there's a new trunk pan with spatter coating, and the floors are described as solid. That's crucial information for any potential buyer. Now I've got to be straight with you folks. At $12,500, this isn't the cheapest 67 Chevelle out there. But considering it's a V8 automatic car with no rust and some key new parts, it could be a fair price for a solid project. The seller's clear about no trades, so they're looking for a cash buyer. One thing to note, while the seller describes it as excellent, the details suggest this is more of a project car than a turnkey classic. It sounds like it needs paint and probably some interior work to be show-ready. So, if you're in the market for a solid 67 Chevelle project with good bones, this could be your ticket. It's got the right engine and transmission combo, a straight body, and some new parts to get you started. Just remember, with any classic car purchase, a thorough in-person inspection is always a good idea. 16. We're diving into a real gem, a 1965 Rambler Marlin that's up for grabs at $14,500. Let me tell you, this isn't your average 60s cruiser. First off, we're looking at one of AMC's most unique designs. The Marlin was a bold move by Rambler, blending muscle car looks with family car practicality. This particular example is sporting a white paint job, which the seller describes as fresh. That's always a plus for a car pushing 60 years old. Under the hood, we've got a 327 Rambler V8. That's a robust engine that should give this fish plenty of swim. It's paired with a 3-speed manual transmission with overdrive, featuring a twin-stick setup. For those not in the know, that's a pretty cool feature that allows for some interesting gear selection options. Now here's where it gets interesting. The seller mentions air suspension, which is definitely not stock for a 65 Marlin. That's a modern touch that should give this classic a smooth ride and adjustable stance. They've also put in a new interior and new tires, so you're getting some fresh components along with your classic style. The odometer shows 114,000 miles, which isn't too bad for a car of this vintage. The seller claims it runs and drives great, which is always good to hear. At $14,500, it's not the cheapest 65 Marlin you'll find out there, but with the fresh paint, new interior, and air suspension, you're getting some nice upgrades for your money. These cars have a strong following among AMC enthusiasts, and unique examples like this can command a premium. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. While the seller describes the condition as excellent, remember that's a subjective term. It would be worth seeing this Marlin in person to verify the quality of the paint job, interior work, and mechanical condition. So, if you're in the market for a distinctive piece of American automotive history that stands out from the usual muscle car crowd, this Rambler Marlin might just be your ticket. It's got style, it's got power, and it's got some modern touches that could make it a great cruiser. 17. We're looking at a 1976 Oldsmobile Delta 88 that's up for grabs at $10,000 or best offer. Let me break this down for you, because this isn't your average grocery getter. First off, we're talking about a coupe version of the Delta 88, which is a bit rarer than the four-door models. Under the hood, you've got a 455 cubic inch big block V8. That's a lot of engine, folks. These motors were known for their torque, perfect for effortless cruising. Now here's something interesting. The odometer shows just 25,193 miles. For a car pushing 50 years old, that's incredibly low. It could be original mileage if the car was barely driven and well preserved, or it might have rolled over once. Either way, it suggests this Olds hasn't seen a ton of road time. The seller mentions a new ragtop, which likely means this Delta 88 has had its vinyl top replaced recently. That's a good thing, as these tops can often be a trouble spot on older cars. The interior is described as clean, which is always nice to hear for a car of this vintage. Here's a big plus. The AC works, but needs recharging. In a 70s car, having a functioning AC system is a real bonus, even if it needs a top-up. The exterior is silver, which was a popular color for these cars, and should look sharp if it's in good condition. The seller says it runs good, which is promising, but you'll want to verify that with a test drive if you're serious about buying. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. At $10,000, this isn't the cheapest 76 Delta 88 you'll find out there. But if the mileage is accurate and the condition is as good as described, it could be a fair price for a well-preserved example of 70s American luxury. The seller is open to trades, specifically mentioning GM trucks or SUVs like Yukons, Tahoes, or Silverados. They're clear about not wanting Fords, so keep that in mind if you're thinking of a trade. So, if you're in the market for a classic piece of 70s Americana that can comfortably cruise all day long, this Oldsmobile Delta 88 might be worth a look. It's got style, it's got power, and it sounds like it's in pretty good shape. Just remember to give it a thorough inspection if you're serious about making an offer. 18. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just spotted on Craigslist, a 1979 Pontiac Trans Am, and it's up for grabs at $14,900. Now, I'll be straight with you. This classic muscle car has seen its fair share of miles with 180,000 on the clock, and the seller mentions it needs some TLC. But don't let that scare you off, because this baby's got some serious potential. We're talking about a big block V8 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, the perfect recipe for some old-school American muscle. The seller says it runs and drives, which is fantastic news for a car of this vintage. And get this, no rust. That's a huge win for a 40-plus-year-old ride. Now, I've got to be honest, the odometer is broken, so we can't be 100% sure about the exact mileage. But hey, that's part of the charm with these classics, right? On the bright side, it's sporting some sweet new rims and tires, and the seller's even throwing in a brand new set of original rims. Talk about options. Sure, it might need a bit of love to bring it back to its former glory, but with a clean title and that iconic Trans Am styling, this could be an awesome project car or a future showstopper. Just imagine cruising down the highway in this bad boy, T-tops off, wind in your hair. Pure automotive bliss. So if you're in the market for a piece of American automotive history that's ready for a new chapter, this 79 Trans Am might just be the ticket. What do you think? Should we go check it out? 19. Let me tell you about this absolute gem I just stumbled upon. A 1985 Cadillac Seville that's up for grabs at $5,000. Now, I've got to be honest with you, this isn't just any old caddy, it's a triple black beauty that's been someone's dream car for years. This Seville's got some serious style with its 1930s inspired design, and it's been well loved in the Pacific Northwest its entire life. We're talking about a car with only 82,000 miles on the clock, a clean title, and it's just passed Oregon DEQ. The seller's even throwing in the original build sheet, purchase materials, and those classic gold keys. Talk about a complete package. Now, I'll level with you. This car's got some quirks and issues that come with its age. The AC's not working, there are some slow leaks here and there, and the rear shocks and front suspension will need some attention soon. But hey, that's part of the charm with these classics, right? On the bright side, this Caddy's had a ton of recent work done. We're talking new water pump, catalytic converter, steering system overhaul, fuel pump and filter, radiator, power steering pump, and more. The interior's in amazing condition too, aside from one minor tear on the passenger door. Look, this Seville might need some TLC, but it's a head-turner with a smooth ride that's guaranteed to make you feel like automotive royalty. It's been featured in car shows and always stands out from the crowd. If you're in the market for a unique piece of American luxury with some projects to keep you busy, this '85 Seville could be your ticket to classic car bliss. What do you say we go take a closer look? 20. I've got to tell you about this 1964 Ford Galaxie 500 XL I just spotted, and it's up for grabs at $6,400. Now, I'm going to be straight with you. This one's a bit of a project, but it's got some serious potential for the right person. Let's start with the good news. This is a factory 390 with a 4-speed manual, which is a pretty sweet combo for a classic Ford. The seller says it's a very solid car overall, which is fantastic for a vehicle of this age. Plus, it's coming from Arizona to the Detroit area soon, so you know it hasn't been battling rust its whole life. Now, I've got to be honest about the challenges. This Galaxie is being sold for parts only because there's no title, so keep that in mind if you're thinking about getting it roadworthy. It's also missing the engine and transmission, but the seller does have a 390 block, heads, 4-barrel intake, and bell housing available. The interior? Well, it's seen better days. It's all there, but it's pretty shot and will need a complete overhaul. On the bright side, the 4-speed console plate is in excellent shape with no drill holes or pitting. That's a nice find for a restoration project. There are some issues to address though. The floors have some rust, and there's a spot in the trunk that needs attention. The glass was broken out at some point, but the seller has replaced it with good glass. Oh, and heads up, there's no rubber boot or top ring for the shifter. Look, this Galaxie 500 XL isn't for the faint of heart, but for someone looking for a classic Ford project with good bones, it could be a diamond in the rough. Just imagine cruising down the street in this beauty once it's restored. That's the stuff car dreams are made of. So, what do you think? Are you up for the challenge of bringing this '64 Galaxie back to its former glory?